I'll go into your thing.
Yeah, it's nice to have some people waiting. Yeah, I'm super stoked, man. We got a great lineup of guests coming up.
You're live.
All right, so got it. All right, we're good. All right. Well, welcome everybody. How many people we got? We got a couple of people. Thank you very much for tuning in. Of course, you guys can share this afterwards and watch it at a later date. But I am excited to have Scott Josuweit with me from York, Pennsylvania.
I'm impressed.
I practice, man. I asked Jesse and Maura, I was like, how to say it, and then the first time I saw the spelling, and I was like, all right. So I can thank Jesse and Maura for helping me with that. So
you cheated.
Transparency. So Scott was my first choice to be able to start this series out with, because I felt that there was a lot of things that he brought to the table outside of just great photography. And I think that's really important, because I think we hear a lot in the questions. The longer we are photographers, the more questions we get from younger or newer photographers. And it really all relates back to setting up your business correctly from the get-go. And you can do that at any point in time, but it's just having the understanding of why it's important and why you're doing it, why you should do it, and having the motivation to put forth the energy to make those changes, especially if you've been doing it a long time. It's hard to really make those changes. So I really thought Scott was a great person to be able to bring some of this information, because we're not just going to jump into pictures and jump into how I shot it and all this technical stuff, because everyone asks, how do I make more money? How do I shoot more weddings? How do I do these things that you cannot do unless there is a financial source feeding that? Photography is a very expensive hobby. And if you really want to be a professional photographer, you got to have great gear, and great gear costs loot. So there has to be a learning curve as well as a financial growth curve to that. So this group is about crazy cool lighting and all this, creative stuff, but it's also really a big part of what I want this group to be is just for all of us to be more successful. And success doesn't always come in money. It could come in creative growth. It could come in just a lifestyle change. But I think we all want to be better photographers, and to do that, this stuff is important. And there's not a lot of photographers that are great at this stuff. And Scott and I were talking, and he said, he's a business guy before he's a photographer. And I told him your work would definitely not show that. So before we dive into some of his amazing shots, he's going to talk about how he took them and stuff that everyone's excited to hear about. But I think I'd love to dive in a little bit before about some really important stuff. So Scott is an SLR Lounge and a Mag Mod ambassador. Hail, that is those are some pretty big acclimates, brother. The SLR Lounge, I watch tons of their content. It's an amazing educational platform. So if you have not checked that out, people, you got to jump on.
How I learned 90% of what I do. Man, seriously,
it's great stuff too. It's very useful stuff, but the way that it's broke down and the way that it's taught is I love in-person learning. But I tell you, if you have an educational platform that's going to be online, that's one of the tops. So to be a part of that team, kudos to you, my man.
That's blown away when I got that offer.
So I'm going to let Scott just introduce himself a little bit to everybody, and then we'll jump into some cool stuff. Scott, fill us in. Who are you?
All right, man, I got to talk about myself. I hate this part. So I'm Scott Josuweit, like you said. I'm located in York, PA, the middle of nowhere, about 2 hours west of Philadelphia there. And I was a public school teacher for 10 years. And during that time then, about 4 or 5 years in, I was dating a girl at the time, and she was a photography minor in college. And so that's how I kind of got into photography. She just always had a camera with her. And one day I picked it up And, most people shoot in auto, and I immediately flipped it into manual and just started playing with settings and went, oh, this is just a giant math equation. You just change it like this, and this. And she just went, that's not normal. Nobody does it like that. And within a few months, I had bought a camera and has always said, I only want to photograph animals. I never want to photograph people. And here I am being a wedding photographer, photographing people for a living. So it's been quite the wild ride, and I've been full-time for 4 years now. And in addition to obviously being a full-time wedding photographer, I also do a lot of educational stuff with both in-person workshops, with online mentoring. I have my own little Facebook group. And so, it's great being able to dabble in both, a job I'd love to do, and also still dabble in a little bit of what has always been my passion for a very long time, which has been education. So it's kind of great getting to combine the best of both worlds. And that's what I get to do for a living. And it's pretty freaking awesome.
So you have two different companies, SMJ Photography, which would be
Yep.
probably obviously your photography brand, but then you have the Purpose and Process educational platform.
Well, I guess I guess I kind of announced it, but not a ton. Purpose and Process is just kind of dead now. So
okay.
I'm done away with the name. So it's just going under my name itself. So Scott Josuweit.
Okay.
I always avoided using it because it's not exactly the easiest to spell or say. But now that I finally have been published in a lot of places online, I realized Google actually just corrects whenever people try to spell my name now, which has been kind of awesome. So
what an honor.
Yeah. I mean, they're just like
Scott
JOS, and they're just like, okay, yeah, I think I get an idea what you're going for. So I'm finally like, all right, I need to start using my name because, as for most of us, we use our names in our business. And so I was just like, you know what, I need to start, putting that out there a little bit more. But for couples and all that, no, SMJ Photography's been it from the start, because yes, nobody could ever say it, spell it, anything like that. And you're certainly not going to get referrals from anybody if they're just like, wait, how do you spell that? How do you say it? Like, you're just never going to get around. So that was why I had to go with that.
Is SMJ Photography, is that a sole? Is that just you, or do you have
It's just
associates?
me. I have no
you.
associates, anything like that. I never will. And that's something I know a lot of people feel, certain ways about, but I've always been somebody to just keep it very close to me. And I'm, just like a lot of photographers, I'm very picky about what I want, how I do things. And I don't think I could ever give up that freedom. So I love it too much.
Well, it seems like it's definitely working for you. And in 4 short years, I mean, literally 4 years is not long at all, bro. Like, to be able to reach the level that you're reaching.
Well, I've been at it for over 10 years now, total. 4 years full time though.
Okay. But the difference in that 4 years,
yeah.
So you had six years part-time, 4 years full-time.
Yep.
How much of a difference do you think the growth was in the last 4 compared to the first 6? Do you think you've learned more once you've got that knowledge base and went full-time, or do you think you learned more getting to that point?
I think there's been 2 big growth periods. And I think everybody kind of goes through this. It's when you finally really figure out your camera and the skills that you kind of bring to the table. I think that is kind of one stage that we all go through. It's like, okay, I think I know how to work a camera pretty well. I can kind of create the images I want to create, and I'm starting to get some decent clientele. I feel like that's kind of that first level that most people reach, which is, usually it's like you hit that 6-figure mark and you're just like, I made it, I could finally do all this stuff. And, it feels really good for a while. And then you realize like, oh, there's a lot more to still go from here. And so I think the second point was definitely shortly after I went full time, which ironically, we then ended up in a worldwide pandemic. So that was a whole, set of another challenges. But I decided to look at it as really an opportunity to, number one was I completely rebuilt my website on my own at that time. And so I was just like, okay, you know what? I'm not going to let this get me down. I'm going to, go really hard and make this work because I have to. I have no other choice. I just left my full-time job after 10 years. I got to make this work. So I finally, just started going full steam ahead with that. And with all of that, having that extra time, now I can say I can look back at it as almost as a blessing, because it kind of forced me to get uncomfortable and push myself in ways that I thought I had done before, but I really hadn't. And that, I think, kind of set me up to be where I am today. And, of course, it wasn't fun to go through at the time, but, hindsight's 20/20 at the end of the day.
Nothing is, I don't know. I think nothing great is easy. And I think
Nope.
that it's those growing times that you go through that you learn the most. So, tell us your little bit, I guess, tell us a little bit about your philosophy as far as going into maybe like the sales process. I think we all want more leads. When you talk to younger photographers that want to take that full leap into full time, are there any type of initial lead management ideas? Anything that, I mean, again, I don't want to give away too much, because I do want to encourage people to take, you have an online course coming up.
I will have an online course coming up, and then I do one-on-one mentorships with people as well. If they're looking for something in particular, we can chat over Zoom like we are right now, doing stuff like that there. So
not giving much away, but yeah.
I'd say two big things I see as issues for photographers when it comes to, let's just call it marketing in general. So number one is not having a system in place. It's the most fundamental basic thing. It's, think about when you frequent any business, they have a certain way of going about things. Like when you go into a car dealership, when you go into a restaurant, they have a certain way of doing things. And that applies to us as well, even as creatives. We should have a certain way of going about things, so that way things don't fall through a hole. And that way everybody gets the same experience on a consistent basis. Think about if one of your couples refers one of their friends to you, and then next thing you know, they're just like, well, wait, how did he do that? That's not how he did it with us. And all of a sudden, that whole experience and that referral that you just got, all of a sudden, that might actually not quite pan out the way you had hoped, because there's that lack of consistency that's happening there. So that's a huge, huge part. And then the other big part I feel like I see is a lack of personal touch. And this is one I know everybody can feel a little bit differently about, but for someone who doesn't do any associate stuff, it's just me. Like I'm sending video messages to my leads, I'm texting them, I'm hopping on phone calls with them, I'm avoiding email entirely. So that's one of the big things.
That's
I know
a really good
everybody,
idea. The video messaging, that is a great personable way to do that. I mean, you're a good looking dude, fun guy. That's part of your brand. And through an email, you're not going to get that.
No. And so like
I
learned that from Ben Hartley. He's kind of the proponent of all that. You guys all know who he is. He's the master.
I'm taking notes on that. I am taking notes on that one, because I hate emailing. Philip will tell you that. Anyone that knows, like, I just don't like texting, but I would actually make it probably a video and reply. And what a great way to stay connected in a personal way to your clients.
Yeah. I mean, of course I send emails, once couples sign on there, of course there's emails with all of that stuff then.
Yeah, I get you.
I mean, if we really think about this, our couples are spending thousands upon thousands of dollars with us. And generally, we're usually one of the more expensive vendors after the venue. And in addition to that, we're also probably the one vendor that they work the closest with on the wedding day. So they want to feel really connected to their photographer and feel like, oh, they know what we want, like I can reach out to them when I need to. And if all you do is keep saying like, oh yeah, just email me, it's just like, after a while, you're just like, I really just don't want to. Can I just text you? Can I have a conversation with you? Like, think about all the times in our lives where, maybe we've tried to work with a business and everything is so formal and you just want to get on the phone or be able to text somebody and you can't because they just won't allow it. And what happens most of the time is you say, I'm just not going to do business with them again. I don't want to do business with them. And that's how a lot of the couples feel. So like my couples have my personal cell phone number. And like literally this past weekend, just like every weekend recently, it's been raining. And so they're just like, hey, Scott, like we just would really love to like chat about a rain plan. And I was just like, sure thing. When are you guys free for a phone call? Can you hop on right now? Sure. Took 10 minutes of time rather than all this emailing back and forth. And we came up with a whole big rain plan. And I answered questions that we would have had to go back and forth on when we don't have that kind of time right before a wedding day.
Right.
And so that little personal touch there, like I got the biggest tip I've ever gotten in my life at that wedding this past weekend.
Well, and your clients are going to want to refer you so much more afterwards. They're going to be excited about their experience with you. And
yeah, they were
that
like,
goes a
we were
long
trapped
way.
inside all day and we were worried, but we weren't, because we had gone over everything. We had chatted with you and we hired you knowing that like, you're going to have our backs no matter what. And you did. And we can't thank you enough for that. And that right there, like, guess what? They haven't seen any but 3 photos. And quite honestly, like, do the photos matter? Of course they do. But really, at the end of the day, with that client, it doesn't matter, because it was about the experience they received. That matters so much more than the photos at the end of the day.
Yep. No, I agree. You had mentioned consistency. And
yeah,
I think that's, for me, I had to work hard with my associate brand. The experience is a straight line. Everybody is the exact same because we're an associate brand. You know, and I really feel it has to be, because you don't want good and bad. You know, you want that consistent factor. But through that challenge that I have had as a business owner, I see that struggle in photographers where their work is not consistent. And
trying to be creative,
that's
and
something to
reinvent
be,
the wheel every
it
single
needs to be
time.
addressed. Yeah, it needs to be addressed. And I've even told, for photographers, tell your clients this: you're only charging $1,200. What can they really expect from you? I think it's better to be honest with them. Hey, if you got a nice overcast with some nice blue sky and these fluffy clouds, and yeah, the picture's going to turn out great. I'm super excited. Now, if you face me into the sun for your ceremony, you know, or hey, if you got a dark room that's candlelit, I don't know how, you know, I don't think photographers are honest because they're afraid of not getting the work. But I think that consistency factor is where a lot of brides are disappointed. It's something that you hear all the time. And I've even talked to bride, Amber has the Michigan Displeased Brides group, which is has been a phenomenal group. I mean, seriously, it's been comical at times. Amber does a great job moderating that group, so she keeps everything super cool, super fair across the board. But when you hear, I don't know if I want to go too far into that group or not. But when a bride says, "Oh my God, my wedding pictures didn't look like this," you know, I don't like this photographer, or I'm really mad at my photographer. My wedding pictures look nothing like her, like their portfolio. And you look at this person's portfolio, and Amber and again, Amber does a great job. So she's actually looked at that, and she made a very valid point that if a photographer's whole portfolio is in the afternoon outside in perfect lighting conditions, and you have and if you have a ballroom wedding with chandelier lighting, what can you expect from this photographer? So I think it's one of those things too, is like, if you're a beginning photographer, create that consistency that you mentioned with the process, but also with their expectations. If they've booked you already, the contracts, I mean, I don't want to sound like that guy, but the contract's signed.
Yeah.
Set that bride up for success by just being honest, so her expectations can be consistent. Like you said, that consistent factor is so big. And
I'm probably one of the most boring photographers if you look between like numerous galleries of mine. And you'll just be like, you do the same thing over and over again. I'm like, I do, and I have no shame about that.
Right.
Because the people are different, the venue is different, the weather conditions are different, everything is still different. And of course, there are certain parts that I shoot very unique to certain couples. But
Right.
if we're being very honest, there's very little that we could not replicate from one wedding to the next, time and time again. Hairspray shot, cool. Backlighting, great. We can create a silhouette. We can do little people, you know, we can do all these different things time and time again. And it makes it so that there's a lot less pressure on us. And it also ensures that that couple gets the types of photos that they wanted, that they initially signed up for.
Yep.
And so I honestly, it's kind of I don't want to say it's rinse and repeat, and I just do the same thing for every wedding, because I don't. But
No.
there are certain things that I do the same way each and every time. Like if
Yeah.
you are to watch behind the scenes of me shooting all the formal dances, like the couple's first dance and the parent dances and the toast and everything, you will see that it is shot the same way each and every single time. My settings are probably identical on 95% of those weddings. So like
Okay.
everything is the same time and time again. My lighting's the same, my settings are the same, the lenses I use are the same. Like everything is shot the same way, because I can do it without having to overthink it. And
Yep.
because of that, it allows me more space for, number one, to stay focused on the other things that might be happening around or the moment itself. And then also it just allows me to be more creative, because I know that I'm going to do these things. And then after that, cool, I got what I needed. And then I can play around if I really want to at that point. But I know that I have what I need. I've delivered my consistent work. And then from there, it's like, cool, now I can play around, and whatever I want to do from there is just kind of gravy.
Gotcha. No, I agree. I think that's something that's overlooked quite a bit. In the sense of getting coming into leads, and as you obtain them, any tips as far as a management system, as far as a follow-up system to that lead? Do you have any secrets to share when it comes to what do you do when you get a lead? Like, what's your process?
So the very first thing is send that video message, text it to the couple. That's the first step right there. And I will say probably 90% of the time I'm getting a reply from that, because think about it. How many other people are actually taking the time, making a personalized video and texting it to the couple?
Yeah.
Yeah, there are other people that do that, but not everyone. And also,
Right. Of course.
you don't know what they're saying compared to what you're saying. Like mine are very personalized, where I'll say their name. If I've been to their venue before, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about the team that's there if I know them. Like it's very, very personalized for that couple. And then from there, it's basically hopping onto a phone call. And that's kind of like my little screening process, where I learn more about who they are, what they're looking for. And then also I get to inform them a little bit about some of the things that I do that are a little bit different from what other photographers do. And that's kind of the differentiating point, where either we're going to go, yeah, this sounds like it's a good fit for both of us, and let's schedule a consult and potentially book the job. Or, you know what, this doesn't quite sound like what we're looking for. And then I can send them in a different direction at that point. So that's kind of the initial start.
You don't have to go too far into this, but just what is your top 2 red flags that says a couple is not right for you?
I would say probably anything with the trends. Like if they're just like, oh yeah, we really want like the new trendy direct flash look, or I got a Pinterest board full of stuff, and I always tell couples, it's not that I have a problem with Pinterest, because I really truthfully don't.
Right.
The problem I have with it is that most of the time what they want is they want me to mimic what somebody else has done. And the venue doesn't match, the lighting doesn't match. Like, it's like all these
Don't you
other
love
things.
that, right?
Yeah. And they're just like, oh, I want this amazing sunset look. And I'm just like, you're getting married in the city and there's buildings all around us. Like, you're not getting that. Like there's nowhere nearby where you can get that look. So it's more so about me understanding and making sure that they have realistic expectations. That's the real big part. Where they're just like, you know what, like, yeah, we want some nice portraits, but we don't need like a million of them. And we just like really want to enjoy our day. That's what most of my couples kind of fall into. I'm just like, cool. So you want some epic portraits, but you really just want somebody to document your day, make it great, and you not have to worry about a thing. And they're like, yeah, that sounds great. I'm like, perfect. Let's chat.
So you have done a good job finding a client, though, that is willing to invest into a phenomenal photographer, but also still has the mentality of the blue collar wedding at the barn where the bride's like, I don't care, just do whatever. So that in itself is, to me, that's kind of the dream client, right? So there must be something in that process and in your marketing. So again, I encourage everybody who watches this video to really follow Scott and look into some of those classes, because that's what you hear all the time, right? Oh, how do I find my perfect client? Well, 9 out of 10 people that ask me that question don't know what their perfect client is, first and foremost, so they can't find something. But honestly, like for me, like that sounds like a perfect client. So
copy is more important than most photographers realize. When we talk about copy, we're talking about words. Like your website, like, yeah, your photos have to be good, but the copy needs to speak to your ideal client. And I can't tell you what a game changer it is when you use the same copy consistently in multiple places, including your website. Your couples will eventually, when you find the right couples, like they'll put it into the contact form and not even realize that they're using your own words.
That's awesome.
Because like one of my big things is I talk about like not having cookie cutter photos. And I can actually count, because I've kept track. Over the past year, I've had, I think, 10 different couples that have put cookie cutter stuff or something about cookies in the contact form.
That's nice. That's good. That's powerful.
That tells me, that tells me that they're reading the copy, they're reading the words, and it's connecting with them. I literally have couples that give me chocolate chip cookies at their reception because they know that's part of me. And like, they're just like, oh, we love them too. Yeah. Like they seem like silly things, but that consistent brand and that consistent message will eventually connect you to those right types of people. And when they find you and they start using those words back to you, you go, okay, now I have something special here. And that's usually when things start to, that's when things start to really take off for me.
Yep. So you, I forget the young lady's name that you had mentioned that you had just recently done your website with when you went to the WordPress, right?
Oh yeah. I use Melissa Love, by the way. She's great. I do.
So was she a factor in did you guys write the content together? Did you
No, I had this done before.
Outsource that, or did you do it?
No, I did it with a little help from Ben Hartley's course. So that was the work of all that. Basically, and Ben will tell you, it's taking why am I going to blank on now? Donald Miller's Building a Story Brand. If you guys have never read that book, it's a must read. Because
would you do me a favor after we're done, maybe tonight or something? Would you leave a link to that book in the comments here? Just for myself and for everybody else.
Have you ever read it?
I have not, man. And
oh my goodness,
I like books that I see people get. Okay, all right.
Any business.
I was a big E-Myth.
Okay, that's a good one too.
Yeah, but no,
basically, building a story brand is all about making the client the hero of the story. Rather than basically making it about yourself. That's the number one mistake I constantly see, is that photographers go like, oh yeah, I took this incredible photo here. Well, guess what? The couple that wants to book you, they don't care. They want to know, what are you going to do for them? What are you going to do for their day? How are you going to help them get what they want at the end of the day?
Right.
Like, if we're being honest, we are all selfish people at the end of the day. We want to know, what can you do for me? If I give you all this money, what can you do for me?
Yep.
And instead of answering that, most photographers go, oh, I do this, 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 and this. And the couple goes, cool, I don't care. Because you haven't shown that you're invested in helping me yet at all. And
right.
once the couple feels and knows that you're invested in understanding what it is that they need and that they're the heroes of the story at the end of the day, well, then all of a sudden you can then start talking about what it is that you do. But at the end of the day, it still has to come back to how is that going to help them?
Yep.
So like for me, I'll say, yeah, guys, you know how like some days the weather, you just never know. Like, you know, this past weekend it poured and we were stuck inside literally all day. Well, in that case, you know, all those like fancy kind of lighting tricks I do and all that, that's going to help save your day because we can stay inside. We don't have to worry about going out in the rain. And I'm going to turn your venue into something you had not seen before. We're going to use it in ways that are unconventional. And that's going to give you guys the photos that you didn't even know you wanted yet, but you're going to absolutely love at the end of the day. And
That's
that way you
such a
guys
great
don't have to
upsell.
worry about it.
That is
just
such
like,
a great value builder
right.
in that sense, you know. And
So
I think
that's basically at the end of the day.
I had taken a note here. You had made a comment about just something I think would be a good thing to touch base on, something that I kind of laugh about consistently over my years as a trying to learn how to be a business person. So I'd always ask people, hey, what is different about your business? Or tell me something unique about your business. And I tell you, 99.9%, they'll tell you some of the most generic, oh, we got the best customer service. I'm like, so you're telling me there's no place in town that's got good customer service? And it's the most generic. I'm like, it's the most ununique answers that you could possibly think of. And I think that's really important for people to understand. And I don't think it matters no matter what level of a stage of your photography you're at. I think you should really, really dive deep into your soul and into your business, into your photography. Even if you're at the very beginning, find something that makes you different. I don't care what it is. If you wear purple underwear, you know, whatever, find something to make sure that stands out, and try to find something that's somewhat of a value to your client. But nonetheless, I just think that's something that's really important. That is a question that a lot of clients will ask. And if they're not asking you verbally, they're asking themselves.
Yeah.
So, how much, so you Scott, you're by yourself. So how much involvement do you do in, actually, you know, I skipped one really quick. I want to go back just to that little bit of the sales.
Sure.
How do you qualify for your clients? Do you post your pricing? Do you email them a price form prior to talking with them? Do you ask certain questions during your phone call? Any tips on how to qualify the clients before or during?
Yeah. I think it really can vary for everybody. And I always tell people there's no right or wrong when it comes to all of this. The most important part is that you're comfortable with whatever strategy or whatever kind of your roadmap is. The most important part is that you're comfortable with the approach to it. Because if you're not, the couple will be able to tell at the end of the day.
Right.
And so I think for a while, for me, I did the emails and all of that. And ironically, it didn't work very well because nothing else really came across. And I just found I couldn't convey the value of everything that I did really well. And so basically the way it works now is I have a starting price on my website. So that kind of at least gives people a ballpark starting price for where they'll be. And then once they inquire, usually, you know, I'll get an idea of whether it's a shorter day, a longer day, something like that. And I can say, okay, based on this venue and this, your starting price is probably going to be in the ballpark of this. If that sounds good, let's hop on a phone call. And then at that point, you know, if they're just like, oh, well, what would it be for 10 hours? Well, then at that point, I'll quote them pretty much almost an exact price for what they're looking for. But generally, I still like to try to stick with a starting at price. And so basically, I tell people, look, if all this sounds good, you know the ballpark price, let's hop on a consult. And that way we can really customize things. So basically I have packages, but they're all very customizable as to what's included in them. The base is kind of the hours and the amount of coverage. And then everything else from there kind of all gets tweaked based on what it is that they want. And so at the end of the day, then they get their own custom quote for what it is that they told me they're interested in. And I think my favorite technique is basically once they've told you everything at the very end, before I show them all the different choices for what they could do, I just say, so you said you need 10 hours of coverage. You need a second photographer. We're going to have your album. You want to do an engagement session. We need a parent album. You know, I'm going down the list and just repeating back the things that they just told me. And so they go, yep, that's what we need. And then you show them exactly what they need. And there's really nothing else to it.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, so do you do that prior? So you give, how close do you think the starting price is to what your majority of your weddings end up being? Is it pretty close? Do you start really high? Does it sometimes go lower, or do you start lower and then try to upsell in the process?
So I start at 5,400 for 8 hours there. And so if you go to a 10-hour package, that's 6,500. So there's not a huge gap right there. I mean, we're talking basically.
And then you do books and everything a la carte post wedding day.
Every couple gets an album. So
okay.
That's included up front. Now, not the whole album, of course. I give 20 pages. The rest is, afterwards for all of that. But yeah, basically I try to keep it really close because I don't want there to be this massive sticker shock. Unless like they tell me on the phone, hey, we need 4 parent albums, what's that going to be? I'm like, okay, guys, you're going to be over 10 grand in this case. That way, right off the front, I'm not wasting their time. They're not wasting my time. And, we can just kind of squash that up front. So it depends.
Well, I've heard that to be a lot of, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was pretty much finished there.
I heard that a lot of frustration with leads. I've had that frustration with leads, and it's nice to have an abundance of leads. But when you start spending a lot of time on leads that aren't just matching up, especially in those initial stages, you're just trying to get any lead you can, but you end up in the long run, obviously spending a lot of time, a lot of frustrating calls, a lot of frustrating no replied emails. And it can be really frustrating, I think, for people to go through that lead process without some type of qualifying structure to make sure that you have the right. And I think everyone knows that there's a huge debate, where do you put your prices on? God, I see this at least once a week, and some group posts somebody asking this question about pricing on their website or not pricing. I like the strategy that you have. I think there should be some type of initial hope, like for my associate brand, the initial factor is not something that I think is quite obvious, but I would like to think at some point if you're charging, and there's a lot of $5,000 photographers around here that I would have guessed about 22. So there's just a lot of, so I guess, price is not a factor, but I think at some point, if you're wanting to charge a premium type of price, your work, like I can't imagine a bride or a groom going to your site and saying, oh yeah, this guy's $2,000. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's a level of quality there but no matter where, I think that customer doesn't have to have a level of expectation. So
I think by having levels for like, okay, so like for me, I say traditional weddings, 8 hours and up is 5,400. So that right there from the start usually tells most people of like, okay, like it gives them a really good way of being like, that's in our ballpark. Maybe that's a little bit more than what they thought, but it's enough to get the conversation going. And at least they know, okay, if it starts at that, it means it can only go up from there. So we might even have to spend a little bit more. Is that something we're comfortable with? Yeah. So these are all things that I'm putting out there pretty much right up front. And so I don't get I will say I don't get as many leads as I used to, but the leads I do get are very highly qualified because I know coming in,
Yeah.
They see that. And if they don't see it, I'm repeating it on my video message to them. And so, sometimes I'll get a text back, hey, thanks so much. That's going to be out of our budget. We didn't look at that on your website. All right, great. Thanks for letting me know. That way we're not wasting each other's time.
Yeah. Well, if that conversion rate jumps,
It
you're
does.
saving
My conversion
a ton of
rate's like
time.
25% right now.
Okay. I mean,
Which is way
that's
higher than
incredible.
what most people have. Typically in the industry, you're looking at 5 to 10%. And that's what it did used to be, but it's changed. So I've gotten less leads now over the years, but a higher conversion rate. So, it all balances out.
And I think
at
too,
the end of the
there's
day.
value in time. There's value in the momentum. I've had times, man, where I couldn't sell a heater to an Eskimo. Like seriously, like it was just one of those things where it was just like, what the heck is going on? So for me personally, I sell differently when my bank account is fat. You know what I mean? If bills are due and, hey, we're crunching numbers and, and if it's one of those months or whatever, I sell differently. And that confidence factor is a big thing, I think, as well.
Oh, for sure.
When you're on those calls. We have pricing, packages, sales. Well, you want to look at some images?
Let's do it.
You want to plug your any upcoming workshops that you have, any opportunities that people have to learn from you about the sales, about the processes, about all of that good stuff to be able to create a good foundation in a successful business. Where can they go? Where can they find you and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, the main place is my Facebook group, which is the Wedding Photographer Mastermind by yours truly. I'm actually doing a free little masterclass in there next Wednesday night, afternoon, 1 p.m. EST. And basically it's going to be all about systems. In particular, really talking about what are the kind of like daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly tasks that you should be doing as a photography business owner. Because I feel like this is one of the questions that it gets asked so often. It's just like, well, how do you stay on top of your QuickBooks so you don't have to do it at the end of the year all at once? How do you stay on top of scheduling your social media post? And so I'm going to go in and show you kind of my whole system and all these different tasks I've set up that recur on a regular basis and why I have them set up and how it helps my business. And so it'll be up for about a week, but then it's going to come down. So if you want to catch that, tune in live or catch the replay soon, because it's going to come down after that, because it's going to literally be a masterclass that I sell in the future. But awesome. I'm going to give all the content for free for a
coming
week.
Up Wednesday?
Yep. Next Wednesday, it'll be right then on the 25th. So,
okay. Now, how can members join the group? Can the members join the group? Is it an open group? Is it kind of like
ours? It's a totally open group there. Just request and I'll add you in then. So you can just join that. And then that's basically where I share out, about how you can work with me in the future. And then of course you can just go to scottjosuweit.com. That's the website. There's info on there for like monthly coaching, just one-off coaching, workshop stuff, all that good stuff there.
Perfect. And again, we'll leave some links in the comments, definitely that book. And then of course, all the links to where you can find Scott. Scott submitted, how many go? We got 5. So we have some images. I love the images that you picked. Some are just absolutely stunning. Some have so much character to them. Some with great lighting, some with more. So yeah, just a good variety.
I'll try to give you something different. And also these are all ones I have not done elsewhere yet. These are all more recent ones. If you're looking for Dance in the Clouds, Sparkler Send-Offs, Champagne Pop, I've done all those with Magmod already. You can go check all those out, but I wanted to give something a little bit different that I haven't done anywhere else to you guys. So,
well, we appreciate that. I loved this image, and I thought it was a very relatable image because in our group we've done a lot on color correction gels. We did our first fuchsia.
Love me some color correction
sky.
gels.
Oh man, I tell you, it is just transforming your creativity and what you can do. And the sky is really the limit. I mean, I haven't played around with all of the aspects to it, but we did the fuchsia sky the other night with the CTG. And that's just incredible. I'm an icon guy, so I don't have the pink green setting in my camera like the Sonys do. But we did it in post, and it was just breathtaking to see what you can do to a sky in camera. You know, there's no fake skies, there's no,
Nope.
and so I loved this video, this photo, because everyone has this room. I saw, and we're going to show the behind the scenes video that you provided. And I think it's a room that everyone can relate to. You know, you look at some of Esteban's getting ready picture, and you're like, who in the hell gets married? I've been doing weddings for 25 years. I've never set foot in a venue that looked like that room. This room I can relate to. This room looked normal, and you've really created a lot of, in my opinion, a lot of emotion with the blue and using the gels. So I was excited that you picked this one. So walk us through this, and then let us know when you're ready for the video, Scott, and we'll go ahead and play the video for everybody. But go ahead and walk us through what you did here.
Yeah, so it's a 2-light setup. It's fairly simple at the end of the day, but basically she got ready in a church meeting room. You can even see some chairs, tables in the background there. And so just trying to figure out, how do I kill all the ambient to try to showcase other things, and more importantly, showcase the bride. So she didn't even have a bathroom or a place to get ready in. She didn't have a mirror. I literally pulled out, this is a mirror that I use for like my reflections and such. So gave that to her. And I have an assistant holding a light on her that has a quarter CTO on there, along with the mag sphere. And the quarter CTO is because I'm using a blue light, a blue gel light in the background. And when you use a quarter and a blue, that quarter helps push the blue even further blue. So you can really kind of enhance the richness of all that color there.
You know, when we first saw this guy, I don't want to interrupt you, but Philip said that there was a second blue light in the background. And I was like, no, I think he just maybe popped that blue out, but that makes sense. If you really want to eccentricate that blue to put I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just thought that was a really good point, to be able to really bring out that blues, because sometimes you don't really get all of that blue that you really want. So that's a great addition to this shot. So sorry.
Yeah, it's super simple, but it's one of my favorite tricks and go-tos. Is if I'm going to be using blue, why not use a quarter CTO for the main light? That way I can push that blue in the background even further. It's one of those things where people always say, how do your blues get so blue? This is the exact trick I use all the time there. So go ahead and show the other photo and video as well. There.
Go ahead and do that video.
So you guys can see what I was working with there.
I am so thankful and appreciative to the man behind the camera.
Oh, there we go.
Doing all of these switching for us. So
you can even see the gel on there really well. Coming out nice and clear. So yeah, super simple. You can see the other light with the blue is in the background on the right there.
You just had a sphere pointed towards that chair, maybe a little bit like the feather back on her.
Yep. That's it. Just really, really simple there. It was a super tight space for where we were in the corner right there. But that's all we needed. So I just got really low, used the mirror in the foreground there, had the blue fall against all of the ground right behind her there. And that's really all there was to it.
Again, I think that's a very relatable shot. I don't know, destination weddings that I've shot out of Michigan were pretty nice, but I think for the majority of, especially mid-Michigan photographers, and holler if you hear me, if you're out there, that is a room that we see every weekend. And again, I think it's nice to be able to learn some of these creative lighting techniques, some of the gels and how to use these things, allows, like you were talking about in your sales process, you know, that you can really create things that room has never seen.
Yep.
I did a shot at a venue that I've shot at. Yeah. I was over at a place called Hawk Hollow here recently, and it was just it was a makeup mirror and something I saw different. And there was a shot that I've shot there 70 times, maybe, at least a lot. But being able to see something completely different, and the more you create a bigger palette or a bigger toolbox of creative tricks like that, or being able to creative techniques, I should say, the more you're going to be able to do with something so simple. So yeah, it was a great shot.
Yeah, and this is just a little alternative of, you know, it looks like there wasn't much there to work with. And I said, well, what if I point that blue gel at the blinds there? So that just created a little bit more interest in the background there. That main light was still right on her, same exact setup. So it just goes to show you, like, yeah, you might think that you're limited, and sometimes you are, but you know, take your initial shot with whatever you have, and then just move yourself and move some of your lights around, play around with it, especially during getting ready or times like this, because there's very little risk to missing something during these times. So it's always one of those times where, if anything, I probably go harder with my creativity than any other time, because it kind of sets me up for the rest of the day, and just gives me just kind of gets me warmed up for the day, essentially, when it comes to my creativity.
I had 2 weddings recently that didn't have getting ready. And I tell you, it was the most uncomfortable day. There was not that time. I try to encourage all of my clients, like, and I'll even get to a wedding way early just because it takes me a good half an hour to wake my brain up.
Yep.
My sports sessions, I always say, like, if my sessions start at 10 a.m., I'm not going until probably at the 11 o'clock. Like, it takes me 4 or 5 athletes to get through that and get my brain going. And those getting ready shots really do allow you to wake up your brain.
Yeah,
because we don't walk
absolutely.
into a wedding day with those creative things flowing and things connecting and things flowing. It does take a minute.
Yep.
So when you can use creative tools like that, or creative techniques, the mag gels and now I see that you had both the mag spheres there. How often do you, now I am a 110% supporter of MagMod. I probably tag their hashtag in more posts than a week than they would probably like to see, but nonetheless, I'm a huge supporter. However, that mag box, man, is heavy.
It is.
And Tori's a lot of times my assistant, and my fiance Tori, she's 5'3", 5'4", maybe. And I maybe even giving her a little bit. So she's got the stick, and she's got that mag box on there. And boy, if you stick 2 lights in there, the stick starts to bend a little bit. So is that a factor in why you use the spheres, or how often do you use a mag box or a soft box over the mag sphere?
So when it comes to like couples portraits and like actually doing the majority of portraits, like getting ready, I'll use spheres. During receptions, I'll use the sphere. But during actual portraits of people, I'm pretty much always using the mag box.
Okay, gotcha.
Because the big thing is for me, and if you guys know of anything different, I'd love to know. The thing is I need those color correction gels in a softbox. I need them to be able to quickly come in and out. And I've yet to find a softbox that's like a 24-inch that incorporates quarter CTO gels, that has a quick setup. I've heard of the quick setup ones, but they don't have gels. So that's
here
been my main thing.
If you're watching, I want you to take Scott's advice and incorporate some color correction films for that new 24-inch soft, or 26-inch. I think the Gikoto is a 26-inch softbox, but they have that
too
new
big,
quick.
Too big.
Is it too big? But no, that makes sense. The mag mods,
a lot of people have recommended, like I've heard of like the Angular softbox. I've heard of a bunch of other ones, but they don't do gels, or like the Angular one. It was so weird. They have a half and a full, but they don't have quarter CTO. So I'm like, come on, if you're making those, you got to be able to make a quarter.
Right.
So that's
so
my
you
preference.
use the full face, the full face for the mag box.
So
like
I use the quarter
like the magnet
CTO.
ones?
That's my number one thing I use. So.
Okay, but you don't use like a mag gel inside the mag box. You actually use the one that's for the mag box, correct?
Yeah, yeah, it's an
Okay.
actual circular cutout one. Yep.
Yes. Yep. Okay.
Because that's how
Perfect.
it's meant to be, and that's also the quickest, fastest way to gel, a softbox right now, and still.
Yeah.
So that's why, yeah, it's a beast. It's heavy. I love Magmod. I wish it was lighter.
Yeah.
I told him feedback for the second round, the next generation of it, but we'll see what happens with that. But yeah,
But
the
the thing is, a
Magbox was
tank.
used on this photo right here.
It is very well made.
Mhm.
Like it is nice. And I tell you, when you buy something, you do want to feel like it's kind of well made. And I think you do get that with the Meg box, even though it's heavy sometimes.
Oh, for sure.
This is a gorgeous image. Your composition on this is hits a home run for me. I
I'm a
love the
fan of
star.
symmetry. I'm a big fan
Yeah.
of symmetry, if you couldn't tell. This is using high-speed sync. I think this is at 1/4000th of a second at f1.4. And so my assistant, you'll see in the video there, is right on the ledge, right over the bride with the box there. And I had her actually with her hand push out to the veil. That's what gave it that movement there. And just because it needed a little something else to, kind of create a little bit more of a dynamic photo. And that was, I felt like the little extra touch it needed. So
I think
the
movement
video
is something that, yeah, we're pulling that video up right now. She did a good job with that.
we practice.
We're coming.
What you don't see there in the video is literally like probably 2-3 minutes beforehand of practicing
I'm
her
just showing
doing that. Because that's an important part of it. You can't expect great results when you don't coach and talk people through what you want them to do. And so we went over what all that would look like. And, then I brought my assistant in with the light. So like, I want no pressure on them. I just want them to practice. Great. Yep. That's exactly what we're going to do. Great. My assistant comes in, repeat what you just did. Boom. We get the shot just like that then.
And you did a CTO in the Mag box?
Yep. So that's pretty much whenever I'm doing portraits, I pretty much always have a quarter CTO on. So that way I can push the blues.
Gotcha.
That's kind of my little secret trick that I do all the time.
I have noticed that you always have that nice warm blue.
Yeah, it's just one of the things I'm just kind of known for. It's one of the things I've always liked, and yeah, it's another example here. You can see the little dabbles of blue in the sky back there.
Right, and that adds so much, because otherwise it would just it would look boring.
Yeah, so it's got a deeper, richer blue compared to, it would have been a little bit lighter, a little bit more washed out. So this was actually the door the bride walked through for the ceremony. It was just in the middle of the woods there. And I was just thinking, I was like, well, we're in the middle of the woods. There's not a whole lot we can do right here. We had kind of already done the basics, and they were big fans of like haunted spookiness. So this isn't a shot I probably do with every couple, but I knew that they would appreciate it. And they did have lots of red incorporated, like she had a black dress later. So it was just kind of a fun way to incorporate some playfulness in here. And so it's just a speed light with a red mag gel just shooting up from the bottom there. And then my assistant's tucked behind the door on the left side there, just hidden away with the mag box and a quarter CTO in it again. So I think I tried to make it so you could just, you can just check out the flash there. And I think I might kind of back up so you can see it, but.
Now, do you have a GoPro on your camera? Is that how you get this?
I do. Yeah. I have a GoPro on the camera, and most of the time I remember to use it. Not all the time, but most of the time there. The tricky part about this shot was just getting focus on them, because the sliver there was much smaller than you think. And with how close I was using a 6.
Let's say, what lens do you have? Oh. We've paused on Scott's. I got Scott's frozen.
Getting my focus, releasing, and coming back and getting the shot there.
Scott, I missed that. What lens were you using there? Do you remember?
Yeah, 1635.
Oh, 16. Okay.
Yep. It's one of my favorite lenses for portraits, for doing some more dramatic portraits. Well, that's about that.
Yeah, no, I love how that blue again just makes a world of difference.
Yeah, and here's another great example of it, of pushing those blues with the CTOs. So this was, I think it was a full CTO I used here. It may have been a quarter, it may have been a full. I can't remember exactly which one. But this was a part of a styled shoot I did for a new venue that opened.
Okay.
And so part of that, of course, is you have to really showcase the venue if you ever do a styled shoot. And my goal is always generally to showcase venues, period. So this is a shot like I would normally do on a wedding day, no matter what. And this was just kind of a vision of, they had this big piece as part of the roof there that says the venue name. And I was just like, okay, I want to incorporate this in a bunch of different photos because obviously it's great marketing for them and also great marketing for my work potentially there. So with silhouettes, it's pretty simple. You can go ahead and play the video. That's totally fine. It's just the couple holding the flash. I know some people like to put lights on stands, but honestly, a lot of the times we all know what we have to do. We have to Photoshop out those light stand legs later, which is always a pain. And so you can see I darkened it down quite a bit using my camera settings there from what it actually looked like. And basically just have the couple hold the gel, hold the flash with a hand in the back. And then one of my favorite things, if it works, it depends on the couple and their height differences. If she can drape her arm over his shoulder, I really, really love that look. It just kind of adds a little something else to it. So they're not just two little blobs right there.
Do you have any other arm tricks? For example, if the bride is too short and the arm, or if they're either of the person's a little bigger and just cannot get that extended, do you have any things that you do?
It's tough. Most of the time I just default back to not doing anything with it.
Okay. All right. I got
But the other thing you can try is basically having them, doing like the romance with the hand. So like bringing the hand out underneath the chin.
Okay.
So like as if like they're trying to pull them in towards them.
The
tricky part is you got to get all those fingers like separated, right under there. So that way it splays out and you still get the silhouette there.
Right.
So that's one that can work. It's definitely a little bit trickier, but it's an option if you're in a pinch.
No, I love, I mean, this is another one of those shots that you can do a cool silhouette shot if you understand your lighting and know how to get those nice colors. And it's a shot that's just a nice go-to. Yeah. This one I absolutely loved.
Well, thanks.
Yeah,
this was the same couple as the first one. That's that bride again. So they actually switched to a different reception venue then. And as soon as I pulled up, this is me shooting it from the parking lot. What you don't see here are the two massive parking signs for handicap that are on the left and right side of the window. Okay. I had to Photoshop out. But the important part was when I pulled up, I went, okay, there's a giant window and it overlooks where the sun is basically going to set. So yeah, this makes sense to play with here. So there you go. You can see the lovely parking signs right there. And then inside, this was after everybody had kind of left. And basically, I just tried to kill all of the ambient lights.
Leave that there, Philip, for a second.
Yeah. So let's try to kill the ambient light. And that way, basically, it would expose for the little lights up top, which you can see kind of along that inner roof line there. And then also expose for the sky. So basically, the goal was like, hey, let's darken this down as much as we can go, still keeping, a little bit of ambience there. And then basically the mag box was going to be my main light on the couple to pull them out of the scene there. So now I will say this is, go for it.
Oh no, I wanted to point out something in that. Okay, Philip, can you go back real quick, buddy, to the video? Do you mind? I'm sorry, man. A lot of our members, when I've seen them at workshops and stuff like that, they're really just getting to know what color correction gels are. Sometimes even when I just pull up my mag gels, what are those? So I do want to point out that the mag box, if you see that inside the window, if anyone's watching it, if you notice how that white film is kind of an offset. Magbox actually makes gels that fit the softbox rather than just clipping on your magnet on your flash. So if you have a mag box and you are wanting to explore or even go to that next step with the color correction gels, I highly recommend those, because they're using that with the mag box will give you a softer light, and it'll be a lot easier to change in and out as well. So, all right, sorry, Philip.
Well, no, perfect. And personally for me recently, I've switched to using the 8300s. I've been a big fan of that. Gives you that little bit of extra power, especially when doing a shot like this, because for this, I was probably, I think I was like F9 or F11, something like that here.
Yeah.
Because part of that was trying to stay within shutter speed. I could go with high speed sync, I could have. But in this case, I really wanted more depth because of the layers of the building, and then also to get some texture throughout the whole scene there. This wasn't one where I just wanted to completely annihilate, everything else except for the couple.
Right.
So that was a big factor in all of that. And so the 8300 works really nicely because, number one, it has a modeling light, which you saw on there in the video. So that's what you're actually seeing, which is really helpful, especially when you're trying to focus through glass and all of that.
I'm a Nikon guy. I know all about the low light focus issues.
Oh, all the Nikon jokes. I love it. But like, it's really helpful for, situations like this when you're dialed down all the way and you're just like, I can't quite see the couple. Well, a modeling light's really going to help in this case.
Okay. Yep.
And then the 300 just has that little bit of extra juice compared to the 200s that basically just kind of make it something you can pull off a little bit easier without having to, really finesse and finagle with all your settings and your gear like that. So,
and
I will admit that was one of the,
heavy.
What was that?
Putting the two 200s in that thing makes
it's insanely heavy. And it's very lopsided that way. So like, it's very back and forth. And the 300, even though it's probably about the same weight, maybe a tiny bit less than the 200s. But the big thing is because of how it's made, it's more balanced. So it doesn't actually feel as heavy. So that's a big difference maker there, is that it's all kind of centered. So it's much more, whenever somebody's holding it up high, all my assistants are like, I can handle this compared to the 200s. It's a big difference there.
And that's important.
That was one of the rare images I actually did a sky swap on. I very rarely do it.
All right. Well, you brought it to the table. I didn't say a word.
I'll admit it. I'll admit it. Well, because you can tell from the behind the scenes to the actual final shot.
Right.
The only reason is that they both got held up saying goodbye to all their guests, and I'm watching the sunset just disappear, and I'm like, no. And it was amazing. Man. We went out back and did some other stuff, which was okay. But this was the shot I had wanted to do first, because I was like, the sunset behind it was amazing. So I went and found the best sunset I could and combined it a little bit with an actual one there. And that was the result there. So
make it happen. And again, if the client's happy, that's the most important part. It's a gorgeous shot.
Well, thank you. I mean, I told the couple, and they knew. They were just like, we lost sunset, didn't we? I said, you did. And I showed them the shot, and they were like, it's so amazing. I just wish we had the sunset. I was like, I got you guys. They were just like, yay. Right. And I mean, it's going to be a huge spread in their album. Like, it's one of those things, like, do I like to do sky swaps? I don't. But at the end of the day, I'm going to put my ego aside to deliver the couple a photo that they're going to love. That is more important than anything else, than my integrity to the photography industry. Like, I'm sorry. I will die on that hill. That's one I will die on. Whatever for my couples at the end of the day. That's who I'm trying to make happy.
Yeah. Back in the day, and still to this day, there's an argument about DJs and who plays real records and who plays off the computer. And ultimately, if the dance floor is packed, that's what matters. Doesn't matter what.
Like, don't get me wrong. I love a true DJ. I really do. And I always recommend those, DJs to all my couples. But at the end of the day, if the DJ gets people moving and the couple's happy, like, who cares? Who cares?
As long as the client is happy.
Absolutely.
Well, man, I tell you, guess we can wrap things up. I want to say thank you, man. I appreciate you taking the time. I hope everybody who watches this video and is with us, I don't know how many viewers we got right now, but whoever's watches this video, check Scott out. Check all his educational brands. Check his workout. He's a phenomenal guy. Super appreciative for you joining us and sharing. I hope it wasn't too big an inconvenience for your schedule. I know you're a dad, you're a husband, you're a business owner, coach, mentor, superstar, rock star. So thank you so much, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you for giving me a little platform for this. And I'm, like I said, I'm honored to be first. And I mean, it can only get better from here. You have Amber coming up next. So, I mean, that'll easily destroy mine. So,
well, you've set the bar pretty high. We have an awesome lineup. We are going to be transforming this show to strictly weddings. We have a super cool cat in Kansas City in December scheduled. He's a sports photographer, but we're going to kind of fill in a place. We're going to have our own sports show as well as far as weddings go. So you, Amber, Jason Vincent's coming up. We got the Flash Masters guys in January. So we have a stellar lineup, but I tell you, you set the bar high, man. Your work is incredible. I love your business model and your teachings as far as how to run a business, because it is so important. So thanks again, man. I appreciate it.
Of course, man.
We wish
Thank
you
you
well,
so much.
and we hope to see you again in the future.
I was going to say, I'll pass by you again at WPPI and be like, oh, hey there.
All right, brother. Thanks again. I appreciate your time. Have a great night, and enjoy the rest of the night with your family.
All right. Thanks so much, man. Take care, guys.
Take care, man.